The snow fell in soft whispers, blanketing the quiet streets of Maplewood, a small Ohio town where Christmas lights still glowed faintly on porches. Even though December had long passed, under the dim glow of a street lamp, Clara knelt beside a cracked sidewalk, her trembling fingers clutching a piece of chalk. She sketched a half-finished mural, a vibrant meadow bursting with wild flowers on the cold pavement. Her coat, threadbare and too thin for the January chill, hung loosely on her frail frame. Passers-by hurried past, their boots crunching the snow, their eyes avoiding her. Clara's hands shook, not just from the cold, but from the weight of a grief she could never quite name. What kind of pain lingers when the world keeps spinning, but you're stuck in place? And for a moment, silence filled the air, broken only by the soft scratch of chalk against concrete. Clara had been a fixture in Maplewood for months now, though no one knew her story. She appeared one autumn day, sketching on sidewalks, in alleyways, on the steps of the old library. Her art was breathtaking scenes of sunlit fields, children laughing, families gathered around tables laden with Thanksgiving feasts. But her eyes, heavy with shadows, told a different story. She rarely spoke, and when she did, her voice was soft, like a song half forgotten. Townsfolk whispered about her, a widow, a runaway, a lost soul, but no one asked. They left coins sometimes, or a sandwich. But mostly, they let her be, her chalk drawings washing away with every rain, only to bloom again the next day. Tonight, her fingers ached, the last of her chalk crumbling to dust. She stared at the unfinished meadow, her breath catching in her throat. Without supplies, her art, the only thing tethering her to the world, would fade for good. Across the street, in the warm glow of Daisy's diner, Henry sat at the counter, nursing a cup of black coffee. At 62, he was a man of routine, same booth, same order, every evening after closing his hardware store. His calloused hands, still dusted with sawdust, traced the rim of his mug. He watched Clara through the frosted window, her silhouette hunched against the cold. He'd seen her before, her chalk murals catching his eye on his walks home. Tonight, something stirred in him, a quiet ache, a memory of loss he hadn't felt in years. Why would a stranger's struggle tug at a heart that had long grown guarded? He paid for his coffee, slipped on his wool coat, and stepped into the snow, his boots leaving deep prints as he crossed the street. "Cold night for drawing," Henry said, his voice gentle but rough around the edges, like gravel smoothed by a river. Clara startled, her chalk slipping from her fingers. She looked up, her gray eyes wary, her face lined with exhaustion. "I'm not hurting anyone," she said quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. Henry raised his hands, palms open. "Didn't say you were. Just noticed you're out of chalk." He nodded toward the crumbling stubs scattered around her. Clara's shoulders slumped, and she clutched her coat tighter. "Doesn't matter," she murmured. "It'll wash away anyway." Henry knelt beside her, his knees creaking, and studied the mural. "This is something special," he said. "Reminds me of the fields out by my old farm." "You got a gift." Clara's lips trembled, but she said nothing, and for a moment, silence settled between them, heavy with unspoken stories. Henry stood, brushing snow from his coat. "Wait here," he said, and before Clara could protest, he disappeared into the diner. She sat back on her heels, her breath visible in the frigid air. She didn't trust kindness, it always came with strings. But something about Henry's voice, steady and unassuming, made her stay. Minutes later, he returned, a small paper bag in his hand. He set it beside her, and when she peeked inside, her breath caught. A pack of colored chalk, vibrant and new, nestled next to a steaming cup of hot cocoa. "Thought you might need these," Henry said, scratching the back of his neck, "and something to warm you up." Clara's fingers hovered over the bag, hesitant. Why would a stranger care when even her own family had stopped calling? "I can't pay for this," she whispered. Henry shrugged. "Didn't ask you to. Just keep drawing. Town's prettier with your work in it." He tipped his hat and walked away, his figure fading into the snow. The next evening, Clara was back, her chalk moving with purpose across the pavement. The meadow was complete now, wildflowers spilling into the cracks of the sidewalk, their colors vivid even under the street lamp's pale glow. Henry watched from the diner, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Over the next week, he found excuses to pass by a new sketchpad one day, a pair of gloves the next. Each time, he'd say little, just a nod or a quiet word. But Clara's wariness began to soften. One night, as she worked on a mural of a family gathered around a porch swing, she spoke without looking up. "You don't have to keep doing this, you know." Henry chuckled, leaning against the lamppost. "Maybe I like seeing what you'll draw next." She paused, her chalk hovering over the concrete. "No one's ever cared about my art before," she said, her voice cracking. "You ever feel like kindness finds you when you need it most?" Henry didn't answer right away, but his eyes held hers, steady and kind. "Maybe it's not about the art," he said. "Maybe it's about what it means to you." Their conversations grew, small at first, like fragile roots taking hold. Clara learned Henry had owned the hardware store for 30 years, ever since his wife, Ellen, passed. He spoke of her softly, his voice thick with love and loss. "She used to paint," he said one night, watching Clara sketch a sunset. "Not like you, but she loved colors." Clara's hand stilled. "I lost someone too," she said, her voice barely audible. "My daughter. She was 8. The words hung in the air, raw and heavy. Henry didn't press, didn't flinch. He just nodded, letting her grief breathe. And for a moment, silence wrapped them both, a shared understanding beyond words. Over the weeks, Clara shared more how her daughter, Lily, loved to draw with her. How after the accident, she couldn't bear to hold a brush. How she'd left everything behind. Drifting from town to town, sketching on sidewalks to keep Lily's memory alive. Henry listened, his presence steady, his kindness unwavering. One snowy evening, as Clara finished a mural of a little girl chasing fireflies, Henry arrived with something new, a wooden box, its edges worn but polished. He set it beside her, his hands trembling slightly. "Open it," he said. Clara's fingers brushed the lid, her heart pounding. Inside were paints, tubes of acrylics, brushes, a small canvas. Her breath hitched and tears spilled down her cheeks. "I can't," she choked, clutching the box. "I haven't painted since." Henry knelt beside her, his voice soft but firm. "You don't have to forget her to paint again. Maybe this is how you keep her close." Clara's sobs broke free, raw and unguarded, and for the first time in years, she felt seen. Could this moment, this one act, rewrite everything she believed about life and loss? Henry stayed beside her, silent, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder as the snow fell around them. The next week, Clara didn't return to the sidewalk. Henry worried, his evenings at the diner quieter without her. But one morning, as he unlocked his store, he found a small canvas propped against the door. It was a painting of vibrant meadow, a little girl laughing under a golden sky, her face alive with joy. A note was tucked beneath it, in Clara's careful handwriting. "Thank you for giving me back my colors." Henry's eyes burned, and he clutched the canvas to his chest, a warmth spreading through him he hadn't felt in years. Clara's murals still appeared around town, but now, so did her paintings, small canvases left at the library, the church, the diner, each one a gift to Maplewood. Word spread, and soon townsfolk began leaving supplies for her brushes, paints, even a warm coat, small acts of kindness rippling outward. Clara, once invisible, became the heart of the town. Her art a reminder that healing could bloom in the quietest moments. What if your smallest kindness became someone else's reason to keep going? Clara and Henry never became more than friends, but their bond was a quiet anchor. They'd sit together at the diner some evenings, sharing coffee and stories, their laughter mingling with the clink of dishes. Clara painted again, her canvases filled with light, each one a love letter to Lily, to life, to second chances. And Henry, who'd carried his own grief for so long, found his days brighter, his heart lighter, knowing he'd helped someone find their way. Maplewood, too, changed neighbors began looking out for each other, leaving notes, sharing meals, building a community where no one felt alone. Has kindness ever changed your life? Tell us in the comments. Your story might inspire our next video. Subscribe to The Kind Story for weekly real-life inspiration, and explore our playlist of emotional kindness stories. This story is a work of fiction or dramatized for entertainment purposes. While it may be inspired by real human emotions and events, all characters, names, and situations are either entirely fictional or modified for storytelling. This content fully complies with YouTube's community guidelines and is intended to inspire, not mislead.